Chapter 8. I was now in my late teen years and on the front steps of womanhood. I was attending a wedding with my mother and a big group of women from her family. We were all gathered in the U-shaped diwan. The elaborately decorated tall madaa stood at the center, stabilized by a large steel floor plate. There were multiple madaas on the large plate, and there were multiple plates spread from end to end of the diwan. The women inhaled the smoke that was coming from the large tobacco water pipe. The hoses were about 6 to 10 feet long, and the smoke passed through the intricately engraved steel water basin, making a gurgling sound. The women took turns as they passed around the wooden hose to each other, with the hose being long enough to reach the furthest women from the madaa. They all had that bubble on one of their cheeks that was filled with the gat they were chewing on. Beside them, there was a small steel spitting cup to spit out the excess gat juice from their mouths. I started to hear some of the women whisper about how much I had grown and how beautiful I looked, telling my mother that I was probably going to get married pretty soon and that I would most likely score a husband from a very wealthy and prominent family. Don't believe what is being said about your beauty. They don't know what's underneath that face of yours like I do. They don't know how hairy your legs are and how big your ears are. They don't know how disgusting, dumb, and rude you are. They don't know the truth about you like I do. If they spend a long enough time with you, they will discover what I have to deal with. They will see how ugly you are from the inside, my mother whispered in my ear. As mentioned in earlier chapters, arranged marriage is a practiced tradition in Yemen. As women exclusively gather in social settings, the mothers of eligible bachelors scout the room for a potential young wife for their son. If a mother finds a girl she approves of, she then goes back home to her son and describes the physical features of the girl to him in detail. If the son likes what he hears solely from the mother's description, he then discusses a potential marriage proposal with his father. Both the father and the son will evaluate if both families are a good fit for each other in terms of social status, financial status, bloodline status, and reputational status. Once that is cleared out, the father of the groom-to-be reaches out to the father of the bride-to-be and starts the marriage proposal process. By the way, this is considered a very modern approach. Some families are more conservative and would skip these steps completely. For example, if two men get together and decide, hey, I have a son and you have a daughter, I think they should get married, they shake hands on it and it's a done deal. In fact, that's exactly what happened to one of my high school friends and her 3 sisters. They were a total of 4 girls, and her father's friend happened to have 4 boys. So the 2 men decided to match the boys with the girls based on their age. It was one big slam deal. This is, by the way, a pretty common scenario. So neither the boys nor the girls were asked for their consent. They met for the first time on their wedding day, some of them kicking and screaming. Maysoon's marriage was arranged the way most were in Sana'a, through reputation, family connections, and the approval of elders. Someone had recommended her as a grounded, beautiful, and well-mannered woman, a perfect match for Asam. Not defiant and disrespectful like her sister Maha. Looking back now, that unfair reputation had less to do with me and more to do with my mother's complaints a jealous culture, and constant scrutiny. In truth, I was just a love-starved teenager, craving a stable home and protection. One evening, Asam's mother came to visit my mother to start the proposal conversation. She sat on the floor cushions, sipping on traditional tea, her hands resting neatly on her lap. "I have a son," she began, her voice steady but warm. "His name is Asam. He is strong, responsible, and honorable. He has been taking care of our family since he was a child." My mother nodded, already knowing the story. Everyone did. Asam's father had been outspoken about corruption spreading in the government, a proud patriot. One night, the secret police came to their house and took him away. His 6 daughters and only son, just 10 years old at the time, watched helplessly as their father was dragged out of the door. He was never seen again. No answers, no closure. Asam had no choice but to grow up fast. He became the man of the house, working, providing, making sure his mother and sisters were safe. Over the years, he built a business, earned a good reputation, and became known as someone you could trust. My mother listened, nodding as she placed more cookies on the tray. Inside, she was pleased. A man like Asam would take care of Maysoon. He was steady, hardworking, and respected. When my father was consulted, he agreed right away. When Maysoon was told about the proposal, she was excited as well. He's kind and very open-minded, not like most men in Yemen, she told me one evening, a shy smile on her face. He listens when I talk. Unlike many arranged marriages that started as a formal arrangement, there was something different about this one. She looked happy. They talked on the phone late at night, whispering so no one would hear. When he traveled for business, he brought her little gifts, a silk scarf in her favorite color, a delicate gold bracelet, fresh flowers that filled the house with the scent of jasmine. When my father was posted in Qatar, he would come visit her. They even once went out on a date to watch a movie. This was something unheard of during that time. They got married, and not long after, she was pregnant with their first child, Razan. In Sana'a, childbirth wasn't just a family affair. It was a grand celebration. For 40 days, the family would host lavish gatherings filled with live music, endless trays of sweets, and guests arriving with gifts wrapped in ribbon. Women dressed in their finest embroidered gowns, their wrists jingling with golden bangles as they clapped along to the beats of the drums. Maysoon, as the new mother, was the center of it all. Every day she was expected to wear a new embroidered gown, rich with intricate gold and silver thread. The tradition symbolized prosperity and joy. But I could see the exhaustion in her eyes when I visited her after the baby was born. She sat propped up on the cushion, holding her newborn in a soft white cloth. The celebration had barely begun, yet she already looked drained. I leaned in, studying the baby's tiny face. "She looks identical to you," I said, marveling at the resemblance. Maysoon smiled, brushing a fingertip over her baby's cheek. "She does." It all happened so fast. One moment she was a young woman talking on the phone with her fiancé, and the next she was a mother at the heat of a 40-day celebration. But through the exhaustion, the music, and the countless visitors, I could see she was content. The Prime Minister. As I kept showing up in the social scene, mostly weddings and baby showers, the marriage proposals started to roll in. My parents noticed the demand and wanted to wait for the highest bidder. And sure enough, he showed up. One day, my father got a phone call from the Prime Minister of the Republic of Yemen, asking if he could come visit our home. My father was stunned. He had no idea what was going on. He told my mother about the strange call, and she knew right away what the deal was. The women in the social scene had been talking, and the whispers had already been going around. The Prime Minister's family was tied into our social circle, and one of my mother's cousins was married to one of his sons. Somehow, everyone was a distant relative in Sana'a. And now the rumor was out there that the Prime Minister's wife was shopping for her son's bride, and she had her eye on me. The men met and the arrangement was made on my behalf. They paid my father a $10,000 dowry. At that time, in that part of the world, $10,000 was equivalent to $1 million in the US today. And just like that, a sale was made and I was to marry the middle son of the Prime Minister of the country. They showed me a photo of my husband-to-be. I still remember my initial reaction, how I threw the photo immediately and I screamed, "No way! This can't be it. I'm not marrying this person." No one seemed to take me seriously. My mother said that I would learn to love him as time passed by. The women of the family would tell me all sorts of stories of how they met their husbands on their wedding nights. And it wasn't love at first sight, but eventually love blossomed between them and now they lived happily ever after. Especially after you have kids, they would say. You want to have kids right away. It will add to your value, especially if you have boys. During my engagement period, now my fiancé was allowed to come visit me at home under the supervision of my family. It was my parents' strategic plan to get me to warm up to my husband-to-be, since they knew how I felt about the whole thing. This also was considered an outrageously liberal thing to do. We were, in fact, considered a very open-minded, non-traditional, if you will, family. My father was a diplomat after all, and we did travel internationally and have lived amongst Western cultures in Europe and America. My father was criticized for his loose approach in raising young girls in Yemen. The fact that he is even allowing such visits from my fiancé raised a few eyebrows. The plan didn't work. I still emotionally rejected my husband-to-be, and I was sure to communicate that to both my parents after each visit. My fiancé would call my parents' landline, yes, it was that long time ago, and ask if he could speak to me. I would never take those calls. Wedding plans kept moving forward regardless of everybody being well aware of how I felt. My wedding dress was bought for me, and all of my new bridal wardrobe and lingerie was even selected on my behalf. The ballroom was booked and the caterers prepared the menu. The wedding band played the music as it was time for me to walk down the aisle. There were about 200 people in attendance, watching me sob during the entire wedding ceremony, the tears flushing my makeup and dripping down on my poofy wedding dress, a crisp white bouffant gown with a long tail dragging behind me. I had lost sleep and barely eaten in the months leading to the wedding. I lost so much weight during that engagement period that I weighed 85 pounds on my wedding day. The celebration went on as people ate, danced, and took photographs. No one gave too much attention to my emotional state. Just another bride in tears on her wedding day, probably thinking she'll get over it. We all did. After the wedding party was over, it was time for me to go to my new home and spend my wedding night with my new husband. I was 19 years old at the time, but mentally, I was an innocent little child. I had zero sex education and no idea what to expect. I had vague conversations with some of my married cousins, but sex and how it works is a topic that is not openly discussed in that culture. You poor little thing, your face is so pale, don't be afraid. It's going to hurt the first time and blood will come out, just like when you get your period, but it will get smoother the more you do it, was what my grandmother told me about what would happen between my husband and I during my wedding night. This was a time before the internet was available in Yemen. Movies and TV broadcasting was usually highly censored and any sex scenes or even kissing scenes were cut out. As young girls, the only education we were given both at school and at home was to blindly obey our husband and unquestionably perform our wifely duties. Virginity testing is a wedding night tradition that has been practiced for centuries in Yemen. In her first few hours as a newlywed, the bride is expected to submit herself to a humiliating ritual where the groom and the bride are to consummate the marriage underneath a white bedsheet, using the bloody white sheet as evidence to prove to both families that the bride is indeed a virgin. The blood stains on the sheet from her broken hymen are evidence that the bride is pure and her honor has never been smeared. Family members from both sides wait outside of the bedroom to check if the product is good or damaged. If she doesn't bleed on her wedding night, she can be subjected to beatings and communal humiliation. In some cases, even stoned to death. This is known as honor killing. Completely neglecting the biological fact that the hymen, just like any other part of the body, is unique to each woman. Some hymens are stretchy and barely tear at all. Others are thicker and may tear more easily. It's like comparing people's skin. Some bruise from the slightest bump, while others hardly show a mark even after a hard knock. Some people are born with attached earlobes and others with detached ones. Some have thick curly hair, while others have fine thin hair. In the same way, many women are born with very little hymenal tissue to begin with. So it may seem like they don't have a hymen at all, leading to no bleeding the first time they have sex, even though their hymen has never been touched before. Wedding night virginity testing is practiced by many Muslim cultures at the orders of tribal elders. Family members, mostly men, oversee the ritual and hand out punishments if the bride fails the test and does not bleed, showing complete ignorance of hymen and female biology. Similar practices still happen today in parts of Africa, South Asia, and in some small conservative groups in the Balkans, reducing a woman's worth to her hymen and completely ignoring science. Refusing to take part of this humiliation ritual in these cultures can make the bride or her family outcasts in society. Fortunate enough to have a more liberal-minded family, I was spared this extreme public exposure and violation. I was, however, not completely off the hook, and was still expected to report back my consummation experience in detail to my entire family, to his entire family, and to the midwife who spent the night in the room next door to us. And yes, they all demanded answers about the absurd obsession with hymen blood. During the wedding night, back at the groom's home, I spent a long time alone on the bathroom floor crying. It felt surreal, and I was completely trapped. I wanted to escape. The image of Julia Roberts running in her wedding dress in the movie Runaway Bride came to mind. I even looked at the bathroom window and thought, what would happen if I opened it and jumped out? But this was not a Hollywood movie. It was real life. And I was in Yemen. Where would I run to? If I ran back to my family's house, they would beat me up and God knows what else. If I went to the authorities, they would drag me by my hair back to my husband's home and call me a whore and a slut that didn't obey her husband. I had to become resourceful and fend for myself. With tears falling uncontrollably down my face, I begged my new husband to give me some time before consummating the marriage. I told him that I wasn't ready and that I was scared. And somehow, that miraculously worked. He felt sorry for me and left me alone. I spent the next month playing hide-and-go-seek with this man. I spent most of those nights locked up in the bathroom, sleeping on the bathroom floor. I would come up with all these elaborate excuses and beg him to wait. I'm not feeling well today. Tomorrow, I would say. I promise tomorrow's the day. Not having a clue what excuse I would come up with tomorrow. Taking a shower was terrifying. I had to make sure the doors were locked when I was changing my clothes. Spending one night at my parents' house now felt like a vacation. It was one night away from that intense pressure. I would rather die than have sex with this man. I sobbed to Abir over the phone, my teenage voice breaking. This was an excerpt from my memoir, Maha Unshackled. Stay tuned for more to read the next chapter. My memoir has been sitting on my laptop for months now, just staring at me like, now what? So if you know a publisher or you happen to know Oprah or better yet Reese Witherspoon's book club and can slip this memoir to them, I will owe you yoga classes for life. Please subscribe for free to receive the next chapter.